For me, transnational history is a way of looking at the connections and the circulations that happen between nations. So not necessarily saying that nations are unimportant, but there are connections, there are people, there are materials, many different things, ideas that move across borders in different ways and are affected by this.
I have been working as a historian of science, especially of nuclear sciences, for years. And recently I started working on the history of the International Atomic Energy Agency. That was the moment I realized that I have to change my perspective. I have to go beyond the histories of nations, what I used to do before, either when I focused on the US or on Greece, or the histories I wrote about radioactivity in Vienna, because when you work on the history of international organizations, you need a perspective that it's beyond nations, is multinational, is, as we say, transnational. So in short, if you ask me what is transnational history, is this perspective that goes beyond nation states.
We organized this school because we wanted to bring together people from different backgrounds, different methodologies, different disciplines, different ages and different levels of seniority, to bring them together and to develop the field of transnational history with new perspectives, new methods, new sources and new ways of approaching it.
I organized the winter school that was generously funded by the Volkswagen Stiftung, because I realized that we need to sharpen our methodological tools. When we do transnational history, we are not educated enough or trained well on how to write transnational histories, and as I said before, going beyond the national states. That has been this kind of history and historiography has been at the top of our concerns for many years.
Dr. Oppenheimer? Dr. Oppenheimer? You want to know a lot more about it.
This is like to filter out these air particles, these particles in the air that can be harmful.
Oh, I'm super excited to be participating in this Transnational History Lab. And I work on radiation exposure, and it's a really transnational story. And so working with other people that are trying to tell transnational, the local to the global kind of stories, it gives me really wonderful ideas to see what other people are working on, and gives me ideas about how we can create a viable, understandable picture of the nuclear world.
I actually didn't know very much about transnational history at all, so from my department we have a sort of certain orientation towards the history of science, and I saw an advertisement, a call for papers for this, and it seemed like an opportunity to meet people whom I wouldn't normally otherwise meet, and it was an exciting chance to do something a little bit new and a little bit outside of my comfort zone.
Probably because I spent many years working on scientific travels, transnational history of science, reconstructing biographies of scientists sharing knowledge among different countries, and also sharing projects with Professor Mario Rentezzi for many years.
I'm here to take part in this week's events on science and global history, which has brought together a range of scholars, both young and more established, to both present our research and discuss it, and to tangle with broader ideas about globality and how we narrate and conceptualize science and technology transnationally and globally.
I was invited by Professor Rentezzi for our collaboration in science diplomacy project in the past and in the present, actually. So it was for me an extremely important experience to share with historians the path of the science diplomacy and bridging that with my experience in the UN system as much as in the EU level.
I was asked to talk about refugee scientists or science in exile, because this is one of the new research projects I'm developing now, and it's mainly based on an archive deposited in the University of Oxford in the Bodleian Library, which keeps records of scientists that from the 1930s onward were helped by British people escaping from Nazi Germany and from other dictatorships, and also scientists and prominent scholars that were helped during the Cold War, especially people escaping from the Eastern Europe and the Iron Curtain. And I think this is a very rich archive that maybe will allow to reconstruct very interesting transnational histories of science in the near future.
Human rights and nuclear wrongs, and I try to ask the question, why don't the human rights laws embody radiation exposure? And I've unpacked some of the reasons why, and a lot of that has to do with how the UN spread nuclear technology as a human right to nuclear science education, nuclear medicine, and nuclear power for energy. That was just a much more kind of energetic utopian movement than being concerned about contamination. And one of the things I didn't say in the larger discussion that occurred to me after I had spoken about it is that another reason why human rights and nuclear history isn't usually brought together is because human rights are very concerned with fast violence, let's say, borrowing Rob Nixon's kind of terminology. Radiation exposure might be considered a slow violence, right? But it's becoming more and more apparent that radiation harm has impacted many, many generations at this point, and it's a worldwide concern.
So I believe that my experience in the UN system, in EU institutions and in the civil society bring the practical aspect of how to use the knowledge produced by the scholars. Being an insider, I think I can share with my fellows from the winter school the point of view of a different point of view and my knowledge of how it works in the institution.
A piece of this inside of this, the technical experts, I found.
Oh, so I think it's the combination between people who already know each other and who have worked together for a long time and have a really good working relationship with people who have never met each other and who work on really different things. So on the one hand, there's sort of an established community of people who are very well versed in things like science diplomacy and transnational history. And then there are other people for whom these concepts are new. And so in working together, we're able to really draw on an established body of knowledge and bring it together.
The willingness, the activity, like how engaged everyone else, both the junior scholars but also the senior scholars. Everyone brought everything they could, they did everything they could, and way above what you could ever expect anyone to do. I was really humbled about how well people took everything.
Oh my gosh. I think it was seeing everyone's work. I mean, the level of care and connection, people found the most compelling ways to tell stories in a transnational way. It's actually not that easy to find the bridge to tie the local to the global, right? And that everyone here brought a story like that was really inspiring.
What interested me was basically seeing the different methodological approaches, topical and thematic approaches, interventions that individuals were trying to make. And frankly, often our work is quite solitary. And so what was equally interesting and pleasurable was just having an opportunity to see how one's ideas circulate around a room of other just very intelligent researchers.
Well, maybe I think the interaction between the young people and the senior people, and the very open discussions, the way in which we could address different historiographical, theoretical issues, methodologies of research in a very open way. And I think the whole school provided the ideal atmosphere for that.
From my personal point of view, being an outsider from the academic environment of historians, it's a learning experience. It feeds my knowledge and reach my capacity to understand the challenges of science diplomacy through the historical point of view.
I mean, for me, the highlight was the policy briefs, really. And I think it was the highlight for the students as well. I think there is a huge gap between the work that is done within academia and what international organizations are in need of and in their everyday working. Academics are not used to communicate their work to the wider public to start with, but also with those that need their own expertise.
They know how to structure.
So I'm based in Berlin this year, and I actually met someone who also is in Berlin, but I never would have met her if we hadn't both been here at the same time. And I also think in terms of people whose work is quite similar to mine, but are maybe in different departments or different disciplines like sociology, and those types of connections can be hard to make organically, but if you put people together in a situation like this, then you're able to meet people you wouldn't normally otherwise meet.
Oh yeah, I'd just like to underscore the singularity of this type of event. It's actually really difficult to get this many people together for this long period of time. It's logistically, in many parts of the world, almost impossible. Much of my degree work was done in the United States, where one rarely sees an event of this type. With this diversity of scholars and researchers, much of my earlier academic career was spent in East Asia, where likewise a number of national and linguistic barriers prevent this type of collaboration. So I don't want to overstate this fact. There's smart people doing interesting research all over the world, but this event is quite singular, and I want to applaud the organizers and thank the supporters of this event. They should be proud of putting this together.
I think it was a great time here in Nuremberg. Maybe the school was a bit too long, too tiring, the whole week here. But at the same time, I think it was very rewarding in intellectually and personal terms. It has been a very nice week.
I think what we can take from this winter school, from this experience, is even though transnational history is already a field that has a lot of research behind it and a lot of literature on it, there's still areas that are unexplored, there are still approaches we can find, and there are still ways to develop it even further to reach new heights of conceptualization and depths.
It's just been an amazing opportunity to be here, and I'm so grateful to Maria Rentesi and her whole group at FAU for bringing me here. So, I mean, it was...
Throughout this week was that all of us were there more than 8 hours a day, sitting around the table and discussing about what is important and how we can work together and do transnational histories. I really want to thank the Volkswagen Stiftung for allowing us to organize this, generously funding this winter school, and helping us to get out of our very European, Eurocentric perspective. We try to be transnational in respect to the people that participated in the winter school. We haven't been very successful, although we advertised the call very widely. We still had mainly people coming from Europe and the US.
It's been an absolute pleasure.